Young intern greeted a deaf visitor in sign language, not knowing the CEO. Polished shoes clicked across the polished marble as phones buzzed and elevators opened with soft chimes. In the center of the Carter Corporation lobby, a man with a hearing aid waved his hands, trying to get the receptionist's attention. She typed without looking up. His gestures grew sharper, his face tight with frustration. 2 junior associates glanced over and then away. Near the security desk, Aaliyah Brooks paused with her visitor badge and notebook. She saw the man's lips move, recognized the panic behind his eyes, and stepped forward before anyone else did. She raised her hands and signed a calm greeting, asking if he needed directions. Relief broke across his face. He signed back quickly, explaining he was lost and late for a meeting. Aaliyah interpreted the directions for him and guided him toward the right elevator bank. Murmurs rippled through the waiting area. A few staffers exchanged surprised looks. One whispered, "She knows sign." The man smiled gratefully, mouthing a thank you as the elevator doors closed. Across the lobby, a tall figure in a dark suit lowered his phone. Stephen Carter, the company's CEO, had watched every movement. His expression was unreadable, but he followed Aaliyah with his eyes as she returned to her desk, unaware that her small act had just altered the trajectory of her career. Sunlight poured through the high windows of the 12th floor as Aaliyah Brooks arrived before the first pot of coffee had finished brewing. Her badge beeped against the sensor, echoing in the empty corridor. She liked this quiet moment before the building filled with the rush of executives and interns. 3 months had passed since she had started at Carter Corporation, and she had never been late once. Every day she placed her small notebook on the desk, lined up her pens, and reviewed her tasks with the precision of someone who understood she was being watched. The routine was armor. Aaliyah carried it with her from the train ride to the elevator ride because she had learned early that perfection left fewer cracks for people to attack. Even so, whispers followed her down hallways. "Diversity hire," someone muttered once near the copy room. Another time, a manager sighed loudly when she spoke up with a suggestion, then thanked a junior analyst for repeating the same idea. She never answered back. Instead, she wrote small notes in her journal, adding dates and names, building a record with quiet patience. Her skill with sign language had come from evenings spent volunteering at a community center where her younger brother received speech therapy. The center had taught families basic signing so siblings could communicate. Aaliyah had stayed after classes, learning more than she needed, practicing until her fingers could speak faster than her mouth. In college, she had used it to tutor children of deaf parents. It was part of her, not a trick for a resume, and she used it without thinking whenever she saw someone in need. Across the floor, Monica Drake's heels struck the tile like gavel blows. The marketing supervisor carried herself as if the entire floor existed to display her power. She called interns kids in meetings and introduced Aaliyah to visiting clients as our diversity project. When Aaliyah presented research, Monica corrected her mid-sentence or scrolled on her phone. Sometimes she would ask Aaliyah to fetch coffee just as she was preparing to speak, a signal to everyone about who mattered and who did not. Inside, Aaliyah's breath tightened, but her face remained still. She saved the email chains where Monica changed her wording and then claimed the ideas as her own. She kept screenshots of project files with her name removed. It was not revenge she was planning. It was survival. Her grandmother used to say, "Write it down, child, because memories fade, but paper speaks." Each night, Aaliyah opened her journal and added another entry under a date and time. One afternoon, while Monica directed a photo shoot for an upcoming campaign, Daniel Vega entered the open workspace. He was a senior partner from a communications firm that collaborated with Carter Corporation on national campaigns. His reputation was of someone who saw details others missed. He noticed Aaliyah immediately. How she straightened documents before handing them over, how she spoke with clarity when asked about budgets. When Monica snapped her fingers for coffee, Daniel's eyes flicked from the supervisor to the intern and back again. He said nothing, but his raised brow suggested a private judgment forming. After the meeting, he lingered near Aaliyah's desk to ask a question about an accessibility chart. Her explanation was concise, supported by data she had already prepared. Daniel nodded slowly, a faint smile crossing his face, as if he had found a clue to a puzzle no one else knew existed. "You prepared all of this?" he asked. She answered yes without embellishment. "Interesting. he said and left, leaving the faint scent of expensive cologne and the feeling that someone, at last, had truly seen her work. That night, Aaliyah closed her journal with an unusual sense of hope. Someone with influence had looked past Monica's shadow and seen her competence. But hope was a fragile thing at Carter Corporation, and she knew better than to expect protection. The building was full of people who smiled in public and undermined in private. Still, she sharpened her pencils, stacked her files, and arrived early again the next morning. Every small act was a brick in a foundation she was quietly building, a foundation strong enough to carry whatever came next. The conference room smelled of coffee and freshly printed handouts when the marketing team filed in. Aaliyah Brooks slid her research packet to the center of the table, its pages neatly tabbed. She had spent 3 nights refining the presentation, double-checking every figure. When the meeting began, she waited for Monica Drake to introduce her segment as agreed. Instead, Monica cleared her throat and said, "Before we go any further, I want to address some mistakes in the intern's draft." She flipped through Aaliyah's packet, holding up a page. "This chart is off. These numbers are not even current. We cannot have this kind of sloppiness in front of clients." A ripple of discomfort moved through the room. Aaliyah opened her mouth to explain that Monica had approved those very numbers the night before, but Monica's hand sliced the air. "Not now. Just fix it." Heat rose up Aaliyah's neck. She forced her voice steady. "Those figures came from your revised file, Monica. I can show the email." Laughter from 2 junior staffers cut her off. Monica smiled thinly. "Excuses will not fix errors." The meeting moved on without her. At the far end of the table, Stephen Carter had remained silent, watching the exchange with an unreadable expression. He closed his notebook slowly. When the meeting ended, he asked Aaliyah to stay behind for a moment. "Walk with me," he said, gesturing toward the hallway. They stopped near the glass wall overlooking the city. "I read your full report last night," Stephen said quietly. "The data was correct. You handled yourself well in there." His voice dropped lower. "I am meeting Daniel Vega this afternoon about an accessibility initiative. I would like you to join us. No one else from your department will be there." He held her gaze a second longer before leaving her with a time and location. Back at her desk, Aaliyah's hands trembled. A private meeting with the CEO and a senior partner could change everything, or ruin her if Monica found out. She spent her lunch break assembling slides, checking facts, rehearsing answers. In her notebook, she wrote one line in the margin: "Stay calm, stay clear." The boardroom at 3 o'clock was smaller and brighter than the morning's meeting. Daniel Vega sat with a tablet, scrolling through figures. He looked up when Aaliyah entered. Stephen nodded to her chair. "Aaliyah prepared an alternative approach to our outreach plan," he said. She spoke without reading her notes, describing not only the numbers but the stories behind them. Employees who struggled to navigate company systems, customers who left because they felt unseen. Her voice stayed level, even when Daniel interrupted with hard questions. She answered each one with evidence and a practical solution. By the end, Daniel leaned back, thoughtful, tapping his pen. Stephen folded his hands. "This is the kind of thinking we need. Effective immediately, I am naming you temporary senior consultant on the accessibility project. You will report directly to me." For a moment, Aaliyah could not breathe. Daniel gave a small, approving nod. Outside the glass walls, the city traffic crawled like a slow current. Somewhere down the hall, Monica Drake was about to learn that the intern she had just humiliated had been invited into the one room she could not enter. The glow of her new title had barely settled when the whispers began. At first, Aaliyah Brooks thought it was coincidence, an email that left her off a team update, a lunch table that suddenly had no empty chairs. But the pattern grew obvious. Her colleagues started repeating small, twisted versions of her ideas, saying she had taken credit for work that was not hers. She traced the stories back to Monica Drake. Monica had begun feeding clarifications to the internal newsletter and even dropping hints to an industry blogger known for gossip. "The intern-turned-consultant is out of her depth," one post said. Another suggested that Aaliyah was pushing for special treatment under the banner of accessibility. Monica never named her directly, but left enough clues that everyone knew. Aaliyah kept her face calm in public. She still arrived early, greeted people, and turned in her reports. But at night, she quietly built a file on her personal laptop, forwarding emails to her private account, saving screenshots of Slack messages, even recording voice notes on her phone after tense conversations so she would not forget the details. In her journal, she wrote timestamps and exact words. The office felt colder each day. Invitations to meetings stopped coming. 2 analysts who used to ask her for help now avoided her desk. In the cafeteria, Monica's allies took seats facing her so she could see them whisper, but not hear. Still, Aaliyah's posture stayed straight, her voice soft but steady. Only the tightness in her jaw showed the pressure she felt. During one late evening at the office, Daniel Vega walked past and noticed her working alone. He closed the door and sat across from her. "I can see what is happening," he said. "Do not let them push you off balance." He began coaching her quietly, showing her how to frame her proposals, how to answer questions in a way that left no room for misinterpretation. "Make your facts so clear," he told her, "that even a rumor cannot touch them." His quiet support became a small anchor. Yet Daniel was only a visiting partner. He could not shield her from every attack. Stephen Carter remained polite and encouraging in private, but offered no public defense. In meetings, he asked neutral questions and moved on. Aaliyah understood why. He had to protect the project from looking like favoritism, but the distance still stung. Then came the announcement that raised the stakes. The company's board had scheduled a high-profile meeting to decide the future of the accessibility project. The agenda would be published to shareholders and the press. Aaliyah's presentation would be central, but so would Monica's briefing on the marketing side. Everyone knew the outcome could change careers. That night, Aaliyah sat at her kitchen table, documents spread around her like puzzle pieces. She could hear her brother in the next room practicing sign language with a video tutorial, the same language she had learned for him years before. It steadied her. She told herself, "Facts first." Calm voice, "Evidence ready." At work the next morning, she smiled at people who looked away. She pinned a single card inside her planner. "You have prepared for this." In the elevator, she met Daniel. He gave her a small nod. "Stay steady. They will come hard, but you have the truth." As the board meeting drew near, the tension in the office felt like a storm about to break. Monica's emails grew sharper, full of subtle digs. The blogger posted another blind item hinting at a junior consultant facing an ethics review. Aaliyah printed each one and slipped it into a plain folder labeled Archive. By the week's end, the date for the board meeting was posted on the big digital screen in the lobby. People gathered to look at it like it was a scoreboard. Aaliyah walked past them without slowing down. She could feel eyes following her, but kept her shoulders square. Inside, her heart was pounding. Outside, she looked like someone ready to face the room that might decide her entire future. The long walnut table stretched like a runway under the glow of recessed lights. Nameplates and water glasses lined both sides. At the far end sat Stephen Carter, expression unreadable. Beside him, Daniel Vega adjusted a slim folder. Across from them, Monica Drake arranged her papers into a neat stack, the corners sharp as blades. When Aaliyah Brooks walked in, the air changed. Every board member turned. She placed a single black binder on the table and sat, her back straight, but her palms warm with adrenaline. She remembered Daniel's words, "Facts first." Calm voice, "Evidence ready." The chair of the board opened the session, asking Monica to begin. Monica's voice was smooth, almost gentle, but her words cut. She described workflow issues, overreach, potential liabilities. Slides appeared behind her showing charts without context, implying delays and budget overruns. "We must be careful," she concluded, "about entrusting sensitive initiatives to inexperienced staff." A faint murmur rose among the board members. Stephen sat motionless. Daniel's jaw tightened. Aaliyah opened her binder, turning one page at a time while Monica spoke, marking each false claim with a small check mark. When the chair asked for a response, Aaliyah stood. Her heart thudded, but her voice came out steady. "I appreciate the opportunity to clarify." She clicked a small remote. A video appeared on the screen. It showed Monica in the marketing bullpen 3 weeks earlier, her tone harsh as she dismissed an accessibility proposal. "We do not need to waste time on people who cannot even use our platform," Monica's recorded voice said. Gasps rippled across the table. Aaliyah did not raise her voice. She pressed the next button. An audio clip played of Monica telling a blogger, "The intern turned consultant will sink this project. I am feeding you the truth." The timestamp glowed at the bottom. Another gasp. Two board members exchanged stunned looks. Aaliyah held up printed copies of emails, each highlighted, each initialed by IT confirming authenticity. Every major claim about delays or overreach traces back to altered data or rumors initiated by Ms. Drake, she said quietly. The actual progress metrics are here. She slid a second folder down the table. Daniel opened it and began explaining the numbers in simple terms, reinforcing her points. Stephen finally leaned forward, his hands clasped. I have been aware of this initiative from the start, he said, his voice deep and even. I asked Ms. Brooks to join because she brings expertise and empathy we lacked. The results speak for themselves. He turned to the chair. The board needs to know that these smears are not only false, but harmful to the company's reputation. Phones vibrated around the table. Someone whispered that a journalist had already posted the first video clip online. A notification blinked on the screen. Breaking, Carter Corporation board meeting leaks. Monica's face drained of color. This is taken out of context, she said, her voice rising. You cannot… Stephen raised a hand. Enough. He looked at the HR director. Effective immediately, Monica Drake is terminated for misconduct and breach of confidentiality. Security will escort her out after the meeting. Silence fell like a curtain. Monica pushed back her chair but stayed seated, as if her legs would not move. Aaliyah kept her eyes on the table, breathing slowly. She had expected resistance, maybe even dismissal. She had not expected the reversal to be this public, this swift. Daniel closed the folder and spoke into the quiet. The accessibility project is not just a compliance exercise. It is a chance for this company to lead. Several board members nodded, still shaken. Stephen looked around the table. We are moving forward with Ms. Brooks as senior consultant. Full authority, full resources. I will personally oversee the rollout. He paused. Let this be a lesson about integrity. Rumors have no place here. Reporters were already waiting outside the glass doors, camera flashes flickering through the frosted panels. As Monica was led out, someone pushed the door open and a murmur of questions rolled in. Is it true? Who leaked the clips? What happens next? Aaliyah sat down slowly. Her hands no longer trembled. She felt the eyes of the board on her, not with suspicion but with a dawning respect. For the first time since she had walked into the marble lobby months ago, she felt the ground beneath her feet was solid. Weeks later, the glass walls of the 12th floor office no longer felt intimidating. Aaliyah Brooks now walked through them with a quiet authority, folders under one arm, a tablet glowing with updates in the other. Her badge had changed from intern to senior consultant, accessibility initiative. Teams now waited for her input before finalizing designs. Meetings began on time because she set the agenda. Emails poured in from employees she had never met. A warehouse worker wrote, "Because of your plan, I finally have captions on my training videos." A client's deaf son sent a short clip in sign language, thanking her for making a product easier to use. Aaliyah saved each message in a folder called Why I Stay. Down the hall, Stephen Carter announced a new program during a company-wide town hall. The initiative would fund scholarships and accessibility audits in memory of his late daughter, who had once struggled to communicate after a medical crisis. This program exists because of the work Aaliyah began, he said, his voice steady. Cameras flashed. Employees stood and clapped. Daniel Vega returned to the office with a formal agreement for a 5-year partnership between his consultancy and Carter Corporation. We are going to make this the model for the industry, he told Aaliyah as they shook hands. His support had been discreet before. Now it was public, official, and unambiguous. Trade journals began running stories with headlines like Carter Corporation sets new standard for corporate inclusion. Panels at national conferences requested Aaliyah as a speaker. She still answered calls from interns and junior staff, reminding herself what it had felt like to sit at the edge of a meeting and hope someone would notice her work. Evenings found her at the community center where she had first practiced sign language, this time not as a volunteer but as a guest mentor. Children gathered around to hear her explain how small gestures in the workplace could change an entire company. It is about making space, she told them. Sometimes you start by opening the door for someone else. Sometimes you have to hold it open for yourself. Through the glass wall of her new office, the city glimmered like a promise. What had begun as a quiet act of kindness in a marble lobby had turned into a movement that reached far beyond her desk. And Aaliyah Brooks was just getting started. 6 months later, the story had taken on a life of its own. Clips of Aaliyah Brooks addressing packed auditoriums appeared across social media, her hands moving in clear sign language as she spoke to executives about inclusion. Her smile steady as she cut the ribbon at a new accessibility center. Her name listed among national award recipients for corporate innovation. Each new program launched under her leadership carried the same quiet focus that had guided her first act of kindness in the lobby. One morning, a staffer slid a newspaper across her desk. Buried on page 12 was a short article. Former marketing supervisor Monica Drake settles wrongful termination case, moves to a small regional agency in another state. No photograph, no headline splash, just a paragraph noting her departure from the industry. Aaliyah read it once and set it aside without comment. The camera lingered on her office window as she prepared slides for the next conference. Messages of thanks still arrived daily. New interns stopped her in the hall to say she had given them hope. Outside the glass, the city glowed with winter light. The voiceover closed on her reflection in the window, not triumphant, but steady, focused. The intern who once helped a stranger had become the leader who changed an institution. Strategic kindness and careful preparation had not only protected her, they had reshaped the company itself. And somewhere in the hum of the building, another young employee was watching, learning what was possible.